Good afternoon. This is Anna Crowe with the Get Real podcast, where CEOs, CMOs, and communications experts share their real advice. It's 5 questions under 9 minutes because we get to it real fast. So let's get to it. So excited to have today's guest on. In a few sentences, could you please tell us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is Ali Mostashari, and I'm the CEO of Life Nome, a B2B precision health company based in New York City. Life Nome basically uses a combination of systems biology, artificial intelligence, and big data to personalize health and well-being interventions for individuals. Alongside with Life Nome, I'm also a member of the World Economic Forum's Global Innovator Community. And I also sit on boards of 2 different nonprofits, one working on entrepreneurship for marginalized high school students, and the other one on research capacity exchanges between the United States and the African continent to tackle and address issues of importance to development in Africa. In terms of background, I'm an MIT PhD and in the top 20 cited scholars globally in complexity science.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you. I love what you and your business stand for. And of course, you're part of such incredible organizations making such a huge difference. So thrilled to have you on today. What would you say are some of the challenges in creating authentic connections? You know, on this podcast, we talk a lot about getting real. And I hear from other leaders that creating authentic connections, whether it's your customers, employees, partners, vendors, can be challenging when there's a lot of noise out there. What's your take on that?
I think it's very important to actually be authentic yourself before you create an authentic connection with anyone else, and be clear about your own value system. And that helps in the communication with regard to that communication being authentic. For example, if the goal of an enterprise is actually to make money, and then they try to somehow have an authentic connection to their customers, if the only goal is to make money, and then they try to have an authentic connection to the customer, telling them we care about your well-being, that doesn't come across as much as authentic. But if a person is basically telling their customers, from my perspective, you're not cash cows, you're not wallets, you're actual people with actual dignity. And what I care about is providing you with a value that it actually improves your life, and I care about that outcome. I think that makes a huge difference, and people understand that difference. So not taking people to be in a way naive, understanding that people have choices, understanding that people should be treated the same, more than customers, as citizens, as fellow citizens. And that changes, empowering them to make choices, sometimes even if that choice means that they're going to choose someone else. I think that creates trust, and that creates an authentic connection.
Those are some excellent points. And you're right, that self-awareness, self-assessment is so critical before you try to connect and engage with others, right? And making sure you have that clearly communicate that particular piece so that trust can be created. Because where are we without the trust, right? In professional, business, personal, corporate, philanthropic worlds, trust is so crucial.
Absolutely.
So I love that advice. Thank you. Do you have any other real advice for other leaders? Is there anything else that you think is really important?
Yeah, I think within our system, so in the capitalist system and free market economy, we're taught that we're always asked about our competitive advantage. We're not actually asked about our collaborative advantage. So I've actually realized that collaboration is a huge competitive advantage in an area where everyone wants to compete with others. Most of the things that we're trying to address are bigger problems that are very hard to address with one team, one company. It's so much more powerful when you join forces with other startups, with other companies, when you support others who are also growing at the same time, and each party leverages what they're really strong at and doesn't try to reproduce something that another party has done really, really well. By joining forces, it's so much more possible to do so much more for the end customer, alongside what I told you with regards to being outcome oriented, being more aligned with, am I providing value to the end customer? And if you can actually do that together, there's always, it's profitable in a win-win situation for both. And this sounds like a cliche, but in actual reality, it pays off a lot more to being collaborative and being competitive, at least in my market, which is the healthcare market, where the issue is really the health outcomes of the individual.
Now, that's such a great point. What is that expression? A rising tide lifts all boats, or something like that? When you're doing things together and collaborating versus always competing and looking out for what the other company person is doing, right? So I love that
Absolutely.
advice. Yeah, and to your point, and especially in healthcare and in technology and all those industries, right? So many great minds and so many great businesses that can make long-lasting, world-impacting changes. So very cool.
Absolutely.
Well, before we get to our final question, are there any other successful executives such as yourself that you would like to acknowledge or shout out on this podcast?
Yeah, so this is Women's History Month. Actually, it's interesting that most of the people who are my peers in terms of being CEOs that I admire most are women. And three women I want to kind of have a shout out to. One is Ivy Mashao of Evermore. She works on making sure that teenagers and younger people are able to share their mental health problems using an empathy AI platform, Evermore. So basically, if people want to check that out, that would be really amazing. She leads by both by ethics, by example, and by a strong value system. And I find that very admirable. Another person is Kiana Aran from, she's the CSO of CardioBio, again, bringing very strong science to an area of understanding how we can leverage DNA and CRISPR to change people's lives for the better. And the third person being Diana Martinez, who is the CEO of Change Water Labs, working on an impactful area of how do we create clean water for the world. And these people are people I truly admire because what they do is what they've set themselves out to do is actually to create change in people's lives rather than just thinking about what VC, what actual exits am I going to go through. It's basically how can I improve people's lives better? And that goes back to my point about the authentic connection. What we want, what do we want to do? And is our passion actually the well-being of others? And that is, I think, something that makes a great leader, and they are good examples of that. And there are many others that I cannot immediately kind of come up with, but that do the same.
Well, they sound incredible, so I appreciate you spotlighting them, and great timing with Women's History Month, of course. But either way, great women to spotlight, so I appreciate it. Well, our final question is more of a fun one. You've had this incredible career, and you're involved in so many wonderful groups, organizations, and business, of course. How did you get started? What was your first job?
Very good question. So when I was graduating from MIT a year before I graduated, I was extremely idealistic and I wanted to really help the world. The first thing I did is I applied for a competition to get into the United Nations to do development work. And I got accepted as part of that competition to be part of the leadership development program of the United Nations Development Program. And I started my career by working on Sub-Saharan Africa, 33 countries of Sub-Saharan Africa, and working on development projects, health and energy, environment, governance, women's issues within Sub-Saharan Africa. And that was an amazing, amazing experience. But coming directly out of MIT, I had zero work experience. And my direct supervisor, there's a shout out to him, Jeff Avina, basically said, you're smart enough. I'm just gonna kind of give you these projects to manage, $300 million of projects. You're gonna basically be managing that overall program. And that was a huge stressful thing to learn. It was a very, very steep curve, but I actually kind of really enjoyed it. And I grew through that. And I saw the immensity of humanity as when you're in dire situations, you expect human beings to actually kind of become more, for the more negative sides of humanity to come up. But in Africa, I saw so much beauty, so much human dignity, so much honor in terms of the way people are. I fell in love with the continent, and I really gained a lot of optimism for humanity.
Wow, how cool. What a great experience coming out of school like that. That's very awesome. All right, well, such a pleasure speaking with you. How can people get a hold of you or learn more about the company and what you're up to?
Yeah, so the company is called LifeNome. You see the logo right there, and www.lifenome.com, and I'm available on LinkedIn. So again, if people look me up on LinkedIn, I'm actually available to connect to individuals where there's some mutual collaboration potential to getting, particularly with regards to healthcare or any of the other nonprofit areas I'm involved in with regards to STEM education for marginalized populations, or if it's about the African continent. Again, these are my passions, and I'm very, very open to connecting people on those.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you for joining us, and thanks everyone for tuning in. This is Anna Crowe. For more insights, visit us at crowepr.com. Thanks so much. Make it a great day.
Thank you.